Every time that we look at a team, this probably sounds so very simple and elementary, but it really is an important place for us to start every week. Every week we just, organizationally we have to look at it. What do we have to do to keep this team from scoring? That's the first thing that you should, in any sport really. If you're a baseball manager, you're trying to figure out how do we keep the run production of this team down. If you're a basketball coach, I'm sure they're thinking, how do we keep the points down? Once you have a plan for that, then and certainly in football that involves more elements. That involves field position as created by special teams, offensive possession, and so forth. And then you say, okay, now how do we go about scoring our own points? So it's been two particular circumstances that clearly we have to find a way to reduce this point total down from the average of 42 points per game. That's too much to ask just 11 players to do. Okay, we need 33 players to do that, 11 on defense, 11 on special teams, and 11 on offense. Then we have to find ways to raise our point total. So even if we reduce the point total to a more workable number, it's not reasonable to go into the game thinking it's going to be 10-3. And so we have to find a way to raise our point production. And again, we'll probably, to get points of that number, again, it'll probably need the collaborative effort of 33 players. Defense is going to have to do something in terms of takeaways and field position. Special teams is going to have to do likewise, and then offense is going to have to cash it in. So it has been, back to your initial question, Jerry, intriguing from the one side of it defensively, but in looking at it from the big picture and putting the whole game together, that's what's really been, that's the bigger puzzle. With a team that's completing 72% of their passes, that is, they throw it on a lot of downs, and they usually catch it when they throw it. If you give them a short field to operate on, you're in very difficult circumstances. So now that I'm sure time of possession will be one of the ways that if you didn't know anything else, you probably could measure field position. That is, if you flew in, you looked at the box score, and all you saw was time of possession, what you probably would say is, well, number one, Virginia didn't have any short possessions as a result of turning the ball over, which would be harmful. Okay, so you'd say, well, that was very helpful to them. Okay. Secondly, Virginia was able to at least make some first downs when they had the ball in order to kick the ball further down into Texas Tech's territory. So in terms of time of possession, they would kind of tell the story of two very important things. There's a little pattern of their, I think, of their over the 2 years that we've looked at the most. There's a pattern of how the games have gone. Missouri and Colorado both have had two pretty good outings. By the same token, Texas has given up a lot of points 2 years in a row. Texas A&M's given up quite a few points 2 years in a row. So there's a little bit of a pattern, but I think that one of the things that would appear to be the case with Missouri is being in the spread offense themselves, that they and having to go against it all spring and all training camp, probably already had the basis of a plan in place. We're going to try to keep it to be a moderate scoring battle, Jerry. Texas had a scoring battle with them, which was 59-43. Oklahoma State had one 49-45, but Oklahoma State's got that a comparable receiver to Bowman. To Crabtree and Bowman, and he put on a similar type of performance. So based on the performance of those two players, that helped jack those point totals up. Probably wouldn't be to our advantage to try to orchestrate a game that would be that way. But yeah, clearly we need to raise our point total. I don't think this an 18-17 deal probably isn't in the cards. We had a similar, somewhat the same circumstance in a different way when we played Minnesota. They were I think the number two rushing team in the country, and they were second or third in the country in rushing attempts. This team's first in the country, I think, in passing attempts. It's a little bit different in that it wasn't necessarily a run and chase the ball game, but the theory of those teams is you just keep running and running and running and pound them and pound them and pound them, and after a while, they'll just break. And so we had a particular part of the preparation for the game was preparation for that particular style of play, both mentally and physically. We thought we needed to have very physical preparations for that game, so we were used to getting hit. Now we're in a different type of game, and we'll have a similar approach. Just the specifics of how we try to get him ready for that will be a little different. Probably obviously he's got that size, but what is striking is his explosiveness in two ways. One, his quick acceleration after the catch. He can really kick it down into a gear, and that becomes apparent because in line with what we were talking about just a second ago, there are so many of these plays that are just designed to quick get the ball to somebody who can do something with it right now. Their toss play is literally that way instead of the conventional I formation, toss it to the tailback. It happens that quickly. He's got that type of skill to do that with it, and then his ability to jump on the run, which is not only very impressive but consistent with the fact that in researching him and talking to people down in that area of the country, that he was a very highly regarded basketball player. And I've read some things where he tells the story of a couple of occasions when Coach Knight was sitting in the stands watching him play basketball. So he's got a fairly good eye for talent. And then those coaches, David, that I've talked to down there in that conference, one coach's quote was, however, after you watch the tape, however good you think he is, he's better. There'll certainly be times in the game where we'll have to try to match the personnel that they have in the game. One coach that we spoke to said that his plan was to put the best basketball team on the field. He said to put the best basketball players on the field that he had. Well, open field tackling is going to be very important. And actually, in doing work here this morning, that's one of the things that I just recently wrote down as part of the information that's going to the players. That open field tackling will be a very important part of our game, which is going to involve three things: anticipation with the pattern, leverage, and then the actual technique of playing of tackling the player. I think they have, if I have this correct, 3 offensive linemen at 6'7", and another at 6'6". I think the center's the shortest guy at 6'5". So it's yeah. Besides the schemes they run on offense, obviously visually it's a little bit different than what most teams normally look at. It's not just different for Virginia. It's, I think, different than probably 12 other teams have lined up and looked. There's a lot of big players, and there's a lot of big players in college football right now. We could kind of come in every week and say these guys are big, but to have 3 of them at 6'7", and they're not Brad Butler 6'7s. They're 6'7", 345, 6'7", 365. So they serve their purpose as well. They're too tall to get over in terms of knocking balls down, and they're awfully wide to get around. So you can see where there's a pattern in terms of what they're looking for. Jeff, when you watch play after play after play, all the hype and accurately so, he's the Bolitnikoff winner is on Crabtree. But when you really start, obviously in all of these circumstances, these guys don't do it by themselves, no matter how explosive they are. There have been some great players who didn't put up numbers as a college player as Crabtree has because they didn't have the guy to get him the ball like this. This Graham Harrell is extremely accurate. I would say probably in the volume of throws that he has, the 2 most accurate quarterbacks that we've played against, perhaps in this time frame, would be Phillip Rivers and Graham Harrell. He can get it in tight places. He knows how to put it up there so they can go up and get it. He's got a great jump on the run guy. It's kind of almost like an alley-oop. He's able to throw those fades up in there, kind of just to a spot in space where this kid can run and jump and get it over the unexpected defensive back. So he really is he is the critical component of the offense. Yeah, they're similar in scheme to a number of teams that we played. Certainly a lot more similar to what we've seen than on the other side of the ball. Somewhat similar to Pittsburgh, to Connecticut in their schemes. Probably pretty similar. Staff thinks towards those two teams, particularly Connecticut, in terms of personnel. You know, that's part of it. If you're going to win those close games, then as we remarked on many other occasions, you look at a lot of the teams that have very successful seasons, unless they're a team that just is one of those teams that traditionally happens to end up with just more talent than the other teams. That if your field goal kicker has a great year, you're going to win 2 or 3 games that you might have lost. Okay, this year we go to North Carolina, our field goal kicker made 5 field goals. And we had 2 points more. If he went 4 for 5, it would have been a heck of a day for him. We would have lost. You know, he kicks the winning field goal at Middle Tennessee, so we had a great drive. So that's a big factor in it, you know, and what Chris Gould did to elevate his game and is as big a factor in changing the results of the season as anything else. And that I'm not speaking down on Chris because he knows it. It was discussed during last winter, but moving from Connor Hughes to the next year wasn't a very good circumstance for us. It didn't turn out well. We had a new kicker this year. Okay, he just had the same name. And to give Chris a lot of credit, he was a new kicker because he really was. He completely changed his style to make himself a more effective kicker. That's something that, you know, and that's a great lesson for him. That's something in life that a lot of times people want to change their circumstances. They just don't want to change themselves. And he wanted the circumstances to change as much as we did, and he went and really changed his whole style of kicking to make himself a more accurate kicker, and as a big factor in the outcome of the season.